Welcome to the Empower Hour, yet another edition of Empower Hour from Future You. I am Christine Mortensen. Next to me, we have Molly Cantrell-Craig, life coach extraordinaire. And today's topic, we are talking about how to stop scattering your energy and so that you can reclaim your personal power with accountability. So this is the first of a three-part series, all along the lines of a book that Molly is reading. She will tell us much more about it, but it's the 22 Laws of Wellness. 222 laws would be quite a long book, but 22 is probably more than enough to get us started. But just like every Empower Hour, it is a time for you to set aside these 60 minutes for yourself and to be here with us and to forget about gestures broadly, whatever is going on in your life or the world at large. And just to remember that we are humans floating on a large ass rock through space. And so like we do every week, we like to start with a centering exercise. And so if you have a moment, please indulge me as I lead you through the centering exercise. This is all about calling your energy back. So let's take a moment and center ourselves before we dive in. Wherever you are, get comfortable. If you're driving, don't close your eyes through this. But if you're anywhere else but in a car, feel free to close your eyes if that makes you comfortable. If not, you can keep your eyes open. Make sure your feet are grounded, spine tall, shoulders relaxed. Maybe get your tongue away from the roof of your mouth. That can be a stress thing that we do. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. Now we're going to play pretend for just a minute. I want you to imagine pieces of your energy, your thoughts, your worries, your attention, and imagine them scattered across all the conversations you've had, your to-do lists that are left undone, the fears about the future, your old stories that you've got on repeat going through your mind. Now with your next inhale, picture yourself gently calling all of that energy back. Bring all of those little pieces back into you. Ready? Exhale. We're going to do that a couple more times. And on your next inhale, I want you to think to yourself or say it out loud if you like. Inhale, I call my energy back to me. Ready? I call my energy back to me. Exhale, I ground myself in this moment. Let's do that 2 more times. Okay, inhale, call my energy back to me. Exhale, I ground myself in this moment. 1 more time. Inhale, call my energy back to me. Exhale, I ground myself in this moment. Okay, so come back to us. Open your eyes if they were closed. And just notice how it feels to just be with yourself and be fully present. And before we go any further, I want to thank you for giving yourself this time, giving yourself this gift of being present. And thanks for choosing to spend it with us. We really appreciate it, whether you're watching the replay or you're watching live. If you are watching live, do type into the chat. We are live this time. We are on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So I should be able to see your comments through both, through the magic of StreamYard, which is what we're using today. So without further ado, Molly, can you tell us more about this magical book that you're reading, The 22 Laws of Wellness?
Yes. So one of the things I wanted to touch upon before we went in and dove into the book is with breathing exercises specifically, one of the things that helps me is when I inhale, I imagine that my stomach is a balloon and expanding the stomach and making the diaphragm move is a way of making sure that you're filling your stomach. And then when you exhale, to just imagine that you're rolling up your stomach like a toothpaste tube and just squeezing that air out. And it's more of a visual connection that also helps with just making sure that you're really getting that air in and out. Because a lot of times when people inhale deeply, they keep
Mhm.
their air up here, and they're
Yes.
not really getting the full benefits of inhaling deeply. So I just
Mhm.
I always like to make sure that I mention that because I use breathing exercises in my book as well. So and it's just such a really great go-to centering, regardless of where you are. Because I mean, we like to start the Empower Hour with the centering exercise, but breathing deeply is just a really good exercise to do anytime you feel scattered. So, um, so the book. All right. So I have been on a reading kick for the past, I don't know, 3 months, and I read
Mhm.
probably 3 books a week minimum. And and I love lists, and these laws of wellness focus a lot on what we do in our life and what we do in our worlds, our work world, our home world, the world with our children. And you're really the star of the show. And so out of the 22, we've picked three to really focus on over the next 3 weeks. And the concept of Empower Hour really started in January when we wanted to create a space for people to focus on themselves and to kind of carve out an hour to be with people and build community. So I'm really excited actually to be on LinkedIn because it represents kind of growth for us as well. So that's
Mhm.
kind of neat. So if you're joining us on
Feeling
LinkedIn,
LinkedIn
I want to
ready.
thank you for being here. Yeah, I just it's really it's cool to just try things new and step out of your comfort zone. And this is definitely an example of that. But to to the topic of this evening and the laws, these laws of wellness. Um, the one we're focusing on tonight is about accountability, which I believe is the second law of the 22. And accountability is something that is so powerful because I think with your exercise of gathering and mentally and visualizing all of your energy scattered everywhere,
Mhm.
accountability is basically an energy magnet because you really are pulling back all of your power to yourself. And I've got a bunch of notes, so I'll probably refer to a couple of them here. Um, the biggest two things upon which the law of accountability hinges is one, your choices that you make and the behaviors that you take. So,
Mhm.
so a lot of times people interpret accountability as victim blaming is kind of a an extreme or something that people pull from it. Well, it's not my fault that this happened, and this is my fault. And it's actually when you say things like that, that is one of the most disempowering things that you can say because
Mm.
when you blame, oh, the sun was in my eyes, or oh, my boss is mean, or fill in the blank. Anytime that you blame anything else, you are
Mhm.
decentering yourself, and you are assigning value or power to whatever thing that you just blamed. And
Mm.
so that's not to say that there are not systemic injustices. There absolutely 100% are, and I'm not here to say that they don't exist. And I feel
Mhm.
as though those systemic inequalities are being highlighted now more than they ever have before, and I'm all for that because
Mhm.
kind of doing a reference point to our alignment method
Mhm.
sidebar, but relevant, is that our very first letter is A, which stands for
Mhm.
awareness, and you can't change anything if you're not aware of it. So when I talk about personal accountability, I always want to make sure that I'm not minimizing the very real systemic mechanisms that have been put in place ever since thousands of years. I mean, literally thousands of
In
years.
all of
So,
ever.
right. However, there are some things that happen with your body, physiology, dopamine, and cortisol
Mhm.
levels. Cortisol levels drop, and dopamine levels and serotonin levels increase
Mhm.
when you take ownership of something. So, um, those are just some things I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about. And I also wanted to, as we have our conversation, a lot of times we draw upon our own examples, our own life, or things like that. And so
Mhm.
um, I've got, again, some more notes that I don't want to just kind of keep reading off my notes. I'd rather
What
just
can you
kind of show. Oh, go ahead.
Mhm. Can you repeat what what this first one is? This first law?
It's the law of accountability,
Mhm.
and it's the second law in the book of the
What's
22,
this?
but it's
Got it.
the first law that we're talking about in
Mhm.
this series. Um, technically, the very first law in the book is esprit, or spirit, joy, which
Mhm.
I really love to talk about, and I'd love to eventually talk about joy more often with other things. But for the purpose of this series, I wanted to really start about us, or you, make it about all about you, because you're the common denominator in every relationship in your life, in every job in your life, in everything in your life. You're always the common denominator. So here's an example
Mhm.
um, that you might encounter, for example, if you date someone and that a big red flag is, if that person always talks about how all of their partners before you were mean or selfish or cheated on them or whatever,
Mhm.
that's a case of the common denominator in those relationships isn't the other person. It's me. If I talk about, oh, all men are this or all men are that, well, no, they're not. I have to take ownership of why do I choose people who have this trait,
Mhm.
or why do I choose this? And that's
Mhm.
an invitation to do your own inner excavation work of why do I always date men who are workaholics or
Mm.
who
Mhm.
are mean to servers or whatever. Uh,
Mhm.
there's something that's an invitation that you're making a choice out of all the billions of men in the world. If you're always
Mhm.
choosing a man who's mean to servers, that's a choice.
Yeah. Does
So
that get
what does
into
that
like
mean?
projecting? Does that get into
It
like
can. I
projecting,
mean,
like
I'm not.
because you're putting that out there?
It can. I mean, those are just, to me, when I see accountability in this particular case of the choices one makes, um, when you start to see a lesson presented to you in various different forms, whether it's different bosses that you have, or different partners that
Mhm.
you have, or friends of yours who maybe have, you encounter a whole bunch of different types of friends who say the same thing to you, like, why are you always so cranky? Or,
Mm.
what's, and it's not just, if you were to say to me once in a while, Molly, are you cranky today? I might go, ooh, maybe. But if I heard you say it, and, Jane say it, and Joe say it, and Stan say it, and then I would wonder, why am I so cranky? Oh my gosh, is this
Yeah.
something about me, or whatever?
Right.
But it's really about an ownership. It's not everyone thinks I'm cranky. What's their problem? You know. Um, so I don't know beyond the other thing about choices is that it's really the only thing that you have is ownership of your own choices. And that
Mhm.
leads into the second component of the law of accountability, which is your choice to respond, your
Mhm.
behavior.
Yeah. This is one that
Into the
oh,
same coin.
oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
That's a part of this that really resonates with me, is that we can't control what happens to us, right? Like sometimes life gets lifing, and things happen, fortunate and unfortunate. But we can always control how we respond. That is always a choice. We can choose to wallow in it. We can choose to celebrate it. We can choose to find the silver lining. We can choose to learn from it. We don't have to like it. It doesn't have to be positive. It doesn't necessarily have to be negative, but we can choose how we transmute it, how we turn it into something for the future. And so that's something that that accountability part, that's what really resonated when you brought this topic up. I was like, yes, I love that part. And we can also choose to not react. That's also a choice, and I think more people should utilize that. Everything doesn't warrant a response or reaction. Um, we might feel obligated through conditioning, but not everything warrants our energy, our attention. That's something that I've definitely been practicing.
Well, I think that that's absolutely true in terms of, there's a saying, you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to.
Oh,
I'm not sure if
uh-huh.
you've ever heard of that, but
I haven't, but
um,
I like it.
yeah, I don't have to attend every argument I'm invited to. And to your point, it's an opportunity to explore what is it that makes me feel compelled to, shout at somebody back or
Yeah.
to say, oh yeah, well, whatever. And so those are, again, opportunities to examine your own behavior, your own reasons for doing things, your own choices to respond or not to respond.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
what's the other thing? I wanted to make sure I was hitting this thing on accountability. And um, we talked about victim blaming. No, oh, so we touched on just briefly about the physiology in terms of the way that your brain chemistry changes when you say, I chose to do this. And a
Mhm.
lot of times, um, you can have clues to your behavior or your habits by the words that you choose. So if
Mhm.
you find yourself saying, oh, I have to go do this, or I have to do that, or I have to do that, or did you have to do something, or have you chosen to do something?
Yeah, or
And
do
if
you
you
get
find
to do
yourself
it?
saying, correct, and or I decided to do this is an
Mhm.
empowering statement.
Mhm.
When you say, my mom made me blah, 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 oh, did she? Did she put a gun to your head and
Right.
make you do this? And that's
Yeah.
one of the things, actually, I mean, just to kind of sidebar with my own, I'm a happy for no reason trainer. And one of the things that we do when I have a large presentation to a bunch of different people, um, I've done this for a couple, like libraries here in Chicago. And
Mhm.
most of the time, that's a general, what I call a general public audience. There's all ages, genders.
Mhm.
And so one of the very first things that I ask people, and they're presented, they've got something to write with and something to write on, and I talk about intention.
Mhm.
And so I'll say, why are you here? And what do you want to learn? And after I have them write down, why are you here? Um, and it's like a couple sentences. It doesn't have to be a book report. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I'll say to people now, I want to have everyone look at that paper and really be honest with yourself. And did any of you guys write, I'm here because my wife made me, or my husband dragged me to this thing, or whatever. And
Uh-huh.
invariably, I'll get like a couple of, people raising their hands, and I'll say, I'm going to call shenanigans on you because you could have said, oh, I'm going to stay home and sort my sock drawer tonight, or oh, I'm sick, I don't think I should go, or whatever.
Look
You
up
need
sweet
to own
potatoes in
this.
Borneo.
Yeah, exactly. For whatever reason, they chose to leave their house, get in a car, drive
Mhm.
to a building, walk inside, sit down in a seat next to their
Yeah.
partner. That was a
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
And when you start owning those choices, your physiology changes.
Mhm.
And resentment is something that is an anti-accountability caustic material because let's say
Mhm.
that, Joe Schmo didn't want to go to this thing, but he went with his wife and he's sitting there in his seat, burning with resentment. I don't want to
Yeah.
be here. This is stupid. I don't want to be happy. I don't know who this Molly person is. I could be sitting home watching paint dry or something else that they really wanted to do, or putting a model together, or watching TV, or
Right.
whatever. But instead of saying to their partner, I hope you have a good time. See
Yeah.
ya. I would
Yeah.
really love to stay home and sort my sock drawer, which would give them joy and also ownership of their own behavior, but it would also
Mhm.
remove resentment
Yes.
that they
And they
would
probably both
themselves
had
be.
have a better time in the long run.
Correct. Correct. So I guess that's kind of a weirdo example of accountability dynamics in terms of what happens if you don't honor your own voice, you don't honor your own choices, and then that habit of resenting people for
Mhm.
you not owning your own choices is ridiculous, quite frankly. So,
Yeah, and I love that you're talking about this one because I think that's one of the signs that you're not taking accountability and things if you're blaming others. If you find yourself, doing that often, um, or just life in general, and like, you have agency in these things, and like again, totally understand as someone who has had some really shitty things happen in their life, all in May. I oddly enough, over time, I don't know what's up with May, but not my favorite month. But I could blame it on May, but I don't. It's just weird coincidence, right? I have always wanted to look into the astrology of all of these things. However, topic for another time. I won't go down that tangent. I do, however, have a makeshift tangent counter for us this evening. So just FYI, if we do end up on a tangent, I have a way for us to keep track because we go on tangents often. But yeah, I think that's definitely one of the ways is like if you're like, oh, my friend did XYZ and that's why the wedding was terrible. I don't know. Making up an example or using your example of, well, Henry didn't want to go. And so that's why I had a really bad time. He was a sourpuss the whole night. Well, maybe you should have told him to stay home, or maybe he should have, piped up and said he didn't want to go. And that's, lack of communication, right? So that's on both of those people. They're imaginary, our imaginary, I'm assuming couple. I shouldn't assume, but what are some other things where, like, what does scattered energy look like? Does the book get into that, Molly?
um, not in terms of specifics, but one of the things that one of the things that it does is it invites you to do a little audit of your
Hmm.
own day, in terms of how many times today did I blame someone else, or did I attribute something that went wrong to someone else?
Okay.
And one of the examples that I really liked was about sports. And it was a sports analogy, and
Okay.
there were two different reflection exercises, and one of them was about how did the game go. I was a catcher when I was a kid. I was a catcher in Little
Oh,
League and softball, and so I was usually part of every play because you're gonna you're getting thrown at every
someone's got
time
to catch it.
the
Yeah.
ball comes to it. Someone's got to catch it. So, and you're also in a really unique position as a catcher. You can see pretty much the entire field. So you can see the interplay of if someone else is not paying attention in third baseline, or if someone's, looking up at the stands and the right fielder. Um, but the reflection exercises invite the individual to take stock of what happened. So let's say after the inning is over, I go back to the dugout and I think to myself, okay, what did I contribute to in that inning? Did
Hmm.
I miss a foul ball tip? Did I not catch something that came across the plate and it was something I should have caught? Or did I throw someone a ball at first base to catch someone out because it was a bunt, but I overthrew the ball? Look at what I did, and not the first baseman didn't catch what I threw. It was, yeah, I threw it 10 feet above the person's head. Of course they're not going to catch it. So it's really a kind of a truly an assessment of what did I do? Not, oh, the pitcher threw it too fast, or whatever, the umpire didn't call the strike, or any number of other things that you can do to, again, scatter your energy. Because the other thing is that let's assume, for the sake of discussion, that I did throw the ball to the first base person and they did not catch it. Well, for me to sit there and blame that other person isn't going to do any good because I can't fix it. I can't change it. And so we spend a lot of our energy blaming pouring energy into empty holes that we can't ever fill because none of my blaming to that first base person is going to make them catch the ball. It's just not. It is up to the first baseman to say, well, maybe I should make sure that I don't close the glove too soon or whatever. But that kind of plays into the second half of the reflection exercise, which is what's our feedback? And blaming is such a waste of energy because it doesn't fix anything. It only creates resentment. It only creates negative feelings. But to say to a first baseman, hey, sorry, I threw that too high. I will try to, slow up a little bit more and focus on my accuracy. And would you want to practice after, you know, next week's practice? Maybe we can go over some drills so that we can get that really down, or I can get my muscle memory together so that I can get better at throwing to you, especially in a, you know, crisis situation or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the first base person could say, I really need to pay attention to, not closing my glove too soon, or not assuming where you're going to throw the ball, or whatever.
Mhm.
And again, going back to poor Henry and his wife who didn't want to go to my thing, um, we make up all sorts of things, but it all
I
comes down to, again, ownership of your behavior
Mhm.
and communication. Because one of the biggest things about accountability is, and we've all had this experience, is the passive aggressive coworker
Mm.
who's again not asking for what they want or not being a good communicator
Mhm.
and just assuming that everyone understands what they want. So those are things where that's not really accountability per se because I can't fix a passive aggressive coworker. I have to
Right.
take ownership to your point that we talked about earlier in terms of
Mhm.
what is my response. I know that when Susan comes in, she's going to be blaming everybody about everything, or she'll say, "Oh, I
Mhm.
noticed that no one else made the coffee this morning. I guess I'll go make the coffee." Stomp, 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 or whatever. And it's just like, that is Susan's bag. I'll bring
Yep.
my own coffee. I'll make my own coffee. I'll
Yeah.
buy it at the coffee shop downstairs in the lobby before I come up, whatever. But
Right.
you're taking ownership of, Susan can have her shorts in a bunch,
Right,
and
maybe no one
that's
else
her.
drinks coffee.
Yeah, but it's again for me to sit there and think to myself, am I going to engage and share my energy
Right.
with someone who I could have offered to make the coffee, and that
Yeah.
still might not be good enough. No, I'll do it. I like the
Yeah.
coffee made in this way with sprinkles and moonbeams and whatever. But I mean, so you
I want
you
some
really
moonbeam
just
coffee.
I just I just make stuff up. Moonbeam coffee is you make it at night and then
Ooh.
you put it in the refrigerator and I'm totally making stuff. But again,
Let
to
it
your
steep
point
in the in
of
the in the
accountability,
light
what is
of
my
the
behavior? Yeah, there you go. I
sorry.
wonder if it would taste different with the
Uh,
moon, with
who
the, I wonder,
knows?
I wonder
Never
if
thought of that.
the lunar cycles change the composition of water.
Interesting.
But
Maybe. I might be onto something. But no, I totally agree. And I think it's all about like, you know, like asking yourself, what's on me? What can I do better going forward? And sometimes it's setting a boundary and sometimes it's saying like, all right, Susan, if you want the coffee made a certain way, you're going to have to be the one to make it because no one else makes it as good as you do. And you can throw a little flattery in there to, a little spoonful of sugar, right? Um, because sometimes it's not yours. Like she's a passive aggressive one. That sounds like a her issue, but it's totally up to you to decide on whether or not you're going to take it, or if you're going to just let it go. Silence is compliance, right? So then you can't complain about it to yourself, even if you're just letting it slide, right? Um, but if it is truly a problem, and granted, we don't want to die on every hill, right? It's not always worth it. Um, but if it becomes an issue enough, it's time to say something. And it doesn't necessarily have to be by you. It could be something you bring up to your superior or whatnot, depending on what your org chart looks like. But that could be that kind of situation feels like something you can just be direct and upfront with somebody about is probably in my experience, most often the best course of action is to just be polite about it, bring it up, and be like, "Hey, knock it off." Not in those words. Um, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, one of the things that I was thinking about is that um, it's also important not to own what's not yours to own. You know, sometimes
Yeah,
people take ownership or blame of things that aren't your fault or
yeah,
aren't in your lane or aren't up to you in terms of. So I want to make sure that when we talk about accountability, that we are only paying attention to our own real estate. And we're not
yes,
saying that if something's wrong, again, at the office, that we make it our problem because we're, oh my gosh, I was mean to Susan 2 months ago about her coffee, and that's why she's like this, and oh, it's my fault, and I should do that, whatever. Don't sit there and give yourself a litany of why you're such a terrible person. And so, again, with ownership, just own what's yours to own. And
hmm
some of the things that I wanted to make sure that I was getting reflection, oh, um, is to do some experimentation. Find
hmm
out where other people's boundaries are, because sometimes people might not even be aware that they're being really cranky about the coffee, you know?
Oh, yeah. Right, I
It's
mean,
very
sometimes
important.
we're so, like, in just robot mode almost, where we're just doing things, like, by rote, just out of habit because not a lot of people are aware of their actions and the implications of their actions, um, because of a whole host of reasons, but we won't get into that today. But, um, they should be in collab with us, our
Yes.
group
Well,
coaching program. But yeah, like it's good to I agree with you that it's imperative. I would even say that we explore other people's boundaries and talk about these things because you don't know what you don't know, and that's all right. But we should try to find out.
the I wanted to go over the reflection and the feedback and it's measure your own personal best and self-assessment, which I think is also important when you take accountability and you pull your power back from the blaming in terms of, okay, um, um, tangent. Oh, got to put on the tangent thingy,
Oh, okay.
our tote board. So
Tangent number
I know
one.
that, there we go. Woohoo. I know that in a previous, yeah, that's funny.
This is my high tech tangent counter.
It's awesome. I love it. Um, in a previous Empower Hour, we talked about Anish dying to be me, the woman who had a near-death experience and came back, and
Uh huh.
one of the things that I discussed from her book was her personal energy units that she starts a day with, and then she goes through her day and she measures how much of her personal energy units she either gives away or builds up. So eating a healthy breakfast would be building positive energy, but
Uh huh.
screaming at the person in front of her in traffic for no good reason depletes those energy units.
Sure.
And I think about those in terms of accountability. Every time you go through your day and you blame uh, someone else, you're losing energy. It's
Uh huh.
um, and then in terms of an assessment, you're able to go back and say, how could I have done that differently? Or what
hmm
would have been a healthier response? Or where was something where I made an assumption? Or things like that. And these are just opportunities to just again be awareness. We go back to that with the alignment method, is that awareness is something that's very important. Um,
hmm
and and I think being able to speak up in a healthy way is a
Yeah.
way that we flex our power in a healthy
hmm
way. And
hmm
by that, I mean, we're going to go back to poor Susan. And Susan comes in and she's got her shorts and a bunch over coffee. And
hmm
I might say to her, hey, I noticed that you really um, are really focused on coffee. Was that something that, did you have, did you know that you do that? Or was that
Yeah.
something that you know that was like a thing in your house when you were a kid? Was it?
Yeah. Can you
And
tell
she
me
might go,
why? It can be
I'd love to
like
learn more about.
open-ended.
I'd love to
Yeah,
learn
like
more about what this thing is with coffee because that's just like I've just wondered about that. And
yeah.
she'll say, "Oh, I never noticed I do that." Or she could say, "Oh my God, yes, my dad was like, if you don't have coffee on at 8:42,
Mhm.
all hell, broke loose in our house or whatever." So it might give her an opportunity to reflect on, I
Mhm.
had no idea I was doing this in this office or whatever. So again, as long as they're not saying, Susan, freaking cut it out, you're being an asshole. That's not
Right.
cool. First of all, you'll
No.
get written up. So, but I mean, if you're respectful and again to your point,
Yeah.
open-ended and genuine curiosity, and
Yes.
I wondered about this,
Yeah. I
and
noticed, like,
not
it's really
I
it's
noticed.
such a helpful phrase or in any relationship is like I couldn't help but notice that blah 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 like every time we do this or using words like every, never, and always, not great words to include in these types of conversations. Um, you could say often or once in a while. I noticed, or I just noticed. Don't have to have a time marker on it. Um, yeah, I think that's a really excellent point. And that and then you both learned something. And then also I think that's really helpful in that particular instance. I like that you used that example of like, well, growing up, if coffee wasn't made by 8:47 on the dot, you know, the Hulk came out. And that could speak to childhood trauma. And we bring all of those things with us to work, whether we want to admit it or not. Like, we are not separate people coming into the, like, once we put on work clothes, right? Or sit at the desk for work or whatever it is that indicates you're doing your work now. Or if you are going into an office, like, you are not a completely different person. You are a whole person everywhere you are. And you bring all of that with you. You might be masking a lot. You're probably masking a lot. You're probably going so far as code switching. Um, but that's still there. It's all under the surface. And so um, that is one thing I do love that we help employers realize that your worker bees are not just there doing the work. They're bringing the argument that they had with their 12-year-old getting ready for school in the morning. They're bringing the PTA meeting that they have to do after work with them to work. They're having the mortgage closing decision in the back of their mind, or the offer acceptance is probably a more fit. Um, their loved one, they're a caretaker for a loved one and worry that they might be, slip and fall at home or something like that. It could be anything. Those are just a few examples, but just because we're in work mode doesn't mean the rest of it isn't also going on, which can scatter our energy.
So I wanted to mention this is early on in my work career. So like we're talking at least 30 years ago. So
Mhm.
I don't think that I'm gonna identify or out this person. But I was working in an office environment that was very regimented and it was an industry heavily regulated, lots of compliance, things like that.
Okay.
And I was a relative newbie, and there was a woman who worked in the office who was extremely regimental and extremely protective of her areas and her
Um,
verticals and her desk. I mean, territorial and all sorts of stuff. And I think I was 20. I was really young. Um,
mhm.
and I could never figure out why this person was just very fiercely protective of her role
Yeah.
and hierarchical and this is my way and this is why it's this way and did it and it's very and um, I found out that she had a uh, it was an abusive relationship at home, but it wasn't one where she was wearing sunglasses to work.
Yeah.
So
So
again, not
you're
to minimize, but
mentally.
this woman, when she, to your point, when she went home, she had absolutely no status. That
Yeah.
house was set by someone else's rules,
Yeah.
and everybody in that house went by those rules. So
Yeah.
when she got to her world,
Mm-hmm.
that office was run by her rules
Her. Yeah.
because that was the only place she had control in her life.
Yep.
So, I mean, this is kind of outside with our tangent. You know, I think this might be one and a half, possibly two. But especially when you are relating to people at the office, you have to understand that, to your point, you are working with a person who has a 360 mentality. They're a
Yep.
whole human. They're not just bringing in their left leg and four brain cells to work.
Right.
They're a human being. And
Right.
so, you know, again, going to your point on choice and your agency and
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to choose to respond? Am I going to make someone's life extra difficult because I want to be an asshole? Or am I
Right.
going to show some grace and say, you know what? Maybe we can help this person, or maybe we can whatever. But I mean, and I don't want to use the word minister to someone, but I mean, the word minister in its very generic sense
Mm-hmm.
means to take care of or to address and help someone. So not minister like,
Right. Not
you know,
ordained.
sprinkle some holy water on. Exactly.
Right.
I'm not going to spritz anybody with holy water or anything like that at the office. But I do want to make sure that
I
I'm
mean,
taking ownership of my behavior, you
it
know?
might be an upcharge,
Now
um,
there you go. There
for
you go.
the spritzing.
There you go. And it's my my Catholic grandma is you know dead and just going, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's saying this.
I
Probably
said it.
doing
You
some Hail
didn't.
Marys. Well, she's probably doing some Hail Marys up there for me just to be on the safe side.
So wait. So okay. Let's go back. I guess we can count that as one and a half tangents, but it was all relevant. So like, for like, well, that woman, she might not have, that coworker of yours might not have even realized she was doing that. Like, it could have been that's the only place that she is able to exert control, and when we can't, we find an outlet for these emotions one way or another, and it's either through actions like your former coworker, it's or it's illness, right? Like, if you like, there, I can't remember the study, but it's relatively recent, that women can die sooner because we repress so many emotions. um, that's not healthy for us, so it's literally cutting our lives short.
No, and that goes back to again agency and taking ownership of your behavior, even
Yeah.
if that means standing up for yourself. And
Yeah.
standing up for yourself could mean, hey,
Mhm.
Susan,
Yeah.
when I'm not sure if you're aware, but when you do this, everyone on this floor is walking around on eggshells
Right.
or whatever. I don't know, because I'm a big fan of going directly to the source, and if that doesn't help, then you
Yeah.
pursue an HR thing or whatever, because we're all adults, presumably,
Exactly.
at work. But
Especially when we're
it
just
is
talking about
different.
coffee.
It is different, but I mean, it just standing up for yourself is using agency.
Yeah.
But it's also picking your battles
Yes.
and saying to myself, is this really something I'm not going to die on this hill. I really don't give a rat's patootie or whatever. So again, that's again a choice. That's your
Yeah.
behavior. So
Yeah, and that ties into last week's topic of boundary setting too. It's like, this is
yes,
a hill that I choose not to confront anyone on. Like, I was actually having a conversation not that long ago with some friends of like, if I if you bring up a topic, like, I don't know, if there's a topic that I don't know much about, like, um I don't know, I can't even think of a topic I don't know about because I don't know about it. So uh
horseshoes, horseshoes.
great. I don't know much about horseshoes. That is perfect. I am not gonna have I'm going to say, like, I will enjoy your conversation, like, if it's a group of people and they're talking about horseshoes, the game or the actual shoes that go on horses' hooves. Um, I'm not gonna insert myself into it and pretend like I know about horseshoes. I'm just gonna, and if someone asks me, like, Christine, what are your thoughts on horseshoes? I'm gonna say, I think it's an interesting topic. I don't really have an opinion on this. I'm not gonna make something up, which I think so many people, well, I don't think, I know I know so many people do, and you just end up sounding disingenuous because you just don't know, you truly don't know what you're talking about, and so you have an uninformed opinion on it. And
And
that's
when you
oh, and just gonna say the last thing I was gonna say on that is it's okay to not have an opinion.
exactly, because if you start talking about horseshoes as if you
Yeah,
know what you're talking about, first
yeah,
of all, your street cred goes into the toilet, and the next time that you talk about something that you actually do know about, people are
right,
going to go, Molly has no idea what she's talking about because she doesn't know jack shit about horseshoes. So
right,
why would she know anything about botany or whatever?
exactly.
Because she's probably bullshitting on that too. So
Yeah,
just stick to your lane. I think we say that a lot too. Stay in your
yeah.
lane.
Stay in your
But
lane.
don't be
I don't.
afraid to learn more about other things. I mean, if you're in that
Right.
horseshoe conversation, you can
Ask
say, "What's a
questions.
farrier?" Or yeah, exactly, expand your
Right. How
knowledge. But
often do you
don't
have to
bullshit.
change horseshoes? When do you know you need to have a horse's shoes changed? I don't
Exactly.
know. Does it hurt? I've heard it does not. That's one thing I have heard. That's one thing I do know. So, okay, second tangent. Tangent number 2. Um, so that reminds me of a story of, um, a gal in college was, just at, like, a party, right? So they're standing around, they all got their red Solo cups, right? And they're drinking, enjoying, having a good time, wholesome fun. And, the topic of unicorns come up, and, um, she's talking about unicorns, and she's just like, "Oh my god," she's like, "They're so great, this, that, and the other thing, blah, blah, blah," and they're all looking at her like, I forget her name. They're like, unicorns aren't real, right?" She's like, "What?" So don't don't be that person. But she truly did not know that they were real. Um, did not know that they're not real. Sorry, she thought that they were real. I had the opposite experience where I did not know narwhals were actually real. I thought they were truly unicorns of the sea. Um, Fun fact: narwhals are real.
I wonder if narwhals and rhinoceroses are related. Like one of them decided, I'm going to walk out of the water. I'm going to stay in the water. Okay. I have no idea.
Great, and become the what most deadliest land animal?
I don't know. I think they are. Or is that
I,
hippos? I think hippos are the
oh,
ones that you really
hippos!
don't want to mess
Yes,
with
correct.
hippos. They will
See,
hurt you.
this is a fantastic case where I should just be like, I don't know much about this topic.
Well, I think it's
So
hippos.
don't I think you're right. Yes, I'm picturing that infographic
I think
now.
that's also I think that's also tangent three. But
Okay, well,
I
good
want
thing. Good thing
yeah, there
I
you
had
go.
number 3 ready for us. We
Let me
are
look
on
at my notes to make
number
sure.
3.
Loss of wellness, schmucky schmucky, agency,
So I do want
blame,
to ask while you're looking
transfer, victim blame,
while you're looking through
situation.
that, I do want to invite dear viewers,
Oh
if you
yeah,
have any
absolutely.
questions, please do ask us. If you have questions on this topic, if you have questions on another, if there's another topic you want us to uh,
Oh,
schedule in the future, we absolutely can, and will. But do put them in the chat. We will check them later if you're not watching live. Um, we have the two other topics that we were. I'm looking them up. Sorry. Slated for next week is the law of creativity is next week, and then after that, the law of unconditional loving. I'm looking forward to both of those. So those will be the topics. If you have specific questions on either of those ahead of time, go ahead and put them down wherever you put comments.
the one thing that we haven't addressed, and I think we've said it in roundabout ways,
Uh
but
huh.
when you do take ownership of your life or you do take ownership of your choices, that is when you become the architect of your life. That is when you have the capacity to
Yeah.
change things instead of assigning roles to other people. You're taking back your power and you're living your own life
Mhm.
by your own terms and by your own measurements and
Yeah.
at your own pace, by the way, because the other thing that I think is really crucial, and we again kind of hinted at it in terms of comparing our behaviors or our growth or our what's the word I'm looking for? Not boundaries, but successes,
Uh-huh.
best I'm getting right now. But sometimes we blame other people or we blame circumstances
Mm-hmm.
based on us measuring our progress against the yardstick of someone else's life.
Yeah,
And
like the tall
that's,
poppy syndrome.
it's never going to help. It's never going to, you're never going to, because there's always going to be a taller poppy out there. You
Yep.
are, you're just going to have to understand that as long as you have an alignment and there is what I call structural integrity to your authenticity, which that word I wish wasn't used into buzzworded to death because
Yeah.
it's a great word. But
Yeah.
when you really act from the fulcrum of authenticity, that's when you really do move the needle. That's when you really do make really serious strides toward becoming the best person you can be because you are you're using the only raw data that you actually have
Mm-hmm.
control over. You know,
Yeah.
I don't, this is really esoteric and I kind of went off into a
No.
tangent, but
Is that number
anyway,
four?
just ugh.
No,
It's
that was
three and a
relevant.
half.
Hi.
I think that's, yeah, I
Um,
think that's kind of, oh, we've got our, is the office boy acting up?
yeah, our VP of Snuggles has arrived.
BPS singles?
Yeah,
That's
he's
okay.
he's here for his loves and snuggles. But yeah, so I had some notes on that I just want to go through real quickly on how to reclaim your scattered energy, just to give
Yes.
people like action, like action tips. So first of all, Molly, you mentioned this early on is like name where your energy is going when you're talking about like that. I don't know if you called it an audit, but also in our resource vault, we do have an energy audit that can help with this exercise as well. Not in addition to the one that's in the book, but we have a different approach as well. Name where your energy is going. So like write it down or say it out loud. And you and I are both, if you don't mind me lumping you into this, I know that we're both fans of writing things down in this way when we're doing this kind of work because it does have a body brain connection to it that you don't get with the thwapping away at a keyboard like I like to do. But even as digital as I am, there is a lot to be said about actually handwriting things. The second thing out of five is closing loops. So, unfinished tasks and having open ended commitments can drain you. So, limit those as much as you can. Um, the brain doesn't like unfinished loops or unclosed loops. It like I always picture like things just bouncing around in there, right? Like it's just bouncing off the insides of your skull, and that can get to rumination and blah blah blah, and all of or worry, even anxiety. It can build into that, and all of that is wasted energy. Just wasted energy. So it's like if you've heard of energy vampires in your house, which are things that are just plugged in, like your phone charger, it's sucking energy, even if your phone is not charged in, it's plugged into the wall. Unplug that shit. Bring that energy back to you. Um, the third one is recommit to your own vision. Molly, you touched on this, is like, what is start living your life. And not living to someone else's expectations. Like spoiler alert, you're always going to disappoint somebody, no matter what you choose. You're just gonna disappoint somebody at some point, whether it's your mother, your father, your sister, brother, uncle, grandma. Sorry, grandma. um, whomever, the dog. Uh, um, and that can be extremely uncomfortable, especially depending on who it is and how their relationship to you. Um, but you can't make everyone happy. You're not tequila, right? So number four, make small aligned choices daily. Molly, this is something that you have championed time and time again, that the tiny wins create momentum. Um, what's your example from like the morning? Is it making your bed, or what is it, a different one that you use often?
Yeah, basically I have two or three things that I start out my bed is always made before I leave for the day. It's
Hmm.
well, I don't know if we've talked about dysregulation and glimmers. I think we alluded to them in previous power hours about basically things that make you feel calm. And when I can see that my bed is made, it looks awesome. I love the colors. I love the pillowcases. I love the way that it matches my, you know. paint on my bedroom wall. It just, and it looks, it's just, and plus it's a little, and I don't have autism or how, what's the proper way to
AU
say,
ADHD?
well, no, but I mean, it's someone who has autism or a person with autism. I don't want to say, because I think autistic is, I don't know, I just didn't want to, and I didn't want to unintentionally offend
Oh, I
or
see
say
what you mean.
something. But anyway, I don't, I haven't been diagnosed with a neurodivergent mind. But I do have situations when if I look at my pantry and it's full, it makes me feel calm. I
Yeah.
like a full pantry. I like looking at my bed when it's made. It just is like, ah,
Mhm.
my when my walk-in closet and all of my stuff is on the hangers and not on the floor,
Mhm.
it makes me feel better. And
Yeah.
so those little things in the morning that I will do of certain things like my coffee ritual is a ritual that
Yeah.
is something that I know I've done properly, and I'm not OCD and I'm not whatever, but it just there's these they're little wins that you can say, you know what? Yes, my day might have spun out at 9:22, but my bed's made and my coffee stuff is put away.
Yeah.
So score. I
You're still
am
winning.
claiming those as wins. Exactly.
Exactly.
Because that works.
It
It
does.
helps your brain not spiral. Those are little teeny tiny. Okay,
Yep.
here's an analogy for people who are familiar with prairie fires. Good heavens. He did not like the word fire, but there's a backfire, is what happens when you set a smaller fire ahead of a huge one, that when it meets that smaller fire, it goes out.
Yeah.
So creating those little wins create little opportunities to keep yourself from spiraling if you're having a bad day, which I think
Exactly.
that actually is a tan I think that is a tangent.
Oh, that's okay. But no, that's exactly it. So again, like it's making those small aligned choices every day. You're making that conscious effort and that constant conscious choice to give yourself the gift of a made bed. I never make my bed. Um, or almost never. It's not something that bothers me, but I do have a coffee ritual, and so like we all have our own little, our own thing. And then last but not least, number five is interrupt that blame spiral. So Molly, I think you were talking about that at the beginning too, is that like the awareness of it is like you're blaming yourself or blaming others. um I know, especially as women being brought up, you know, in the 80s and around there, a lot of societal pressure to be people pleasers and to be peacemakers and peacekeepers and all of that, and so that can lead to a lot of internalized beating up. And so, you know, pause, take a breath. Molly was talking about that deep breathing from the belly, the diaphragm breathing, really, really helpful. And then make another choice. Try, you know, reframe the story that you're telling yourself. And so those are five ways that you can reclaim your energy. And if you can do that consistently over time, it will take time. You will notice a huge difference in not only how you feel, but it will start to reflect and radiate outwards into other areas of your life. So, thank you. Molly, anything else you want to add before getting into our guest expert for tomorrow?
Well, I do want to just briefly sum up what you had to say because you had mentioned um, taking the blame for things that aren't your fault.
Yeah.
And I should say, I would encourage and invite anyone who's listening to this um, to make sure that the blame that you're taking is your own because it may be a situation, let's say, again, hypothetical, that you might have had divorced parents, or you
Mhm.
might have had, like I said, a dad who got mad when coffee wasn't ready by 8:32 or whatever. And there are maybe some internalized things that you might want to review.
Mhm.
And I think we've talked about it earlier on in the conversation is look for those signs of
Yeah.
grinding your teeth, migraines, stomach
Yeah.
ulcers, things like that, or chronic illness. These are little hints for women specifically that our body is basically our psychological attic or garage or basement. We're just shoving shit down or sticking it
Uh-huh.
there or so just those are little clues so that if when we run into accountability we don't want to absorb blame that isn't ours to carry. But I hope that wasn't taking too much time because I do want to talk briefly about Adrian and invite people to join us on
Yeah.
Wednesday at 11 o'clock. We'll have the link out later in various places. I know it'll also be on our Future You LinkedIn page. Um, but the live version is our gift. So the live version does not cost anyone. You do need to definitely register for the link in order to attend, I think. Um, but Adrian is the founder of Trash Friends, which is a queer-owned company here in Logan Square. It was the Chicago Reader winner of the best cleaning company in Chicago. And in addition to doing cleaning and organizing for people, they do specialize in hoarding disorder.
Mhm.
And they also have a side business that does small repairs. And the best thing that I like about what Adrian brings to his work is that there's really no blame. He has personal experience with hoarding background, and I think a lot of times two things keep from people becoming what they really want to become in terms of a self-help angle is that they're
Mhm.
afraid that if someone really knew who I really was, they wouldn't like me, and I'm ashamed to
Yep.
have someone come into my house and see this, or they have what they call the doom corner, or the doom closet, or the doom drawer, or whatever.
Or
So
all of
I
it.
really, well, yeah, and so I want to make sure that we're talking about what Adrian does in the from a perspective of real technological or not technological. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not sensationalism. We're not going to be
Right.
rubbernecking. This is not sensationalism and blaming and
No,
looking
it's
at,
not like
ooh, that is
the
so disgusting.
cohorters.
And
Yeah.
right, this is about keeping people, how people hold themselves back and how there is freedom for you through having someone who really understands what you're going through. And so
Yep.
that's what I think is so amazing about Adrian. And he does have ADHD. I think he was recently diagnosed formally medically by that. But they're, neurodivergence, AU ADHD is also something that they're just really familiar with, people
Mhm.
who are on the spectrum. And
Yep.
so I invite you to join us on Wednesday at 11 o'clock. It's going to be really very interesting. I learn something every time I talk with him. So
Yeah. Yeah, he's fascinating. Yeah, and if you aren't available to catch the live, feel free to join us in Collab, which is our group coaching program, where we help you transform your life one day at a time. We have a group of amazing women in there doing some fantastic things. We have some AI founders. We have oh my gosh, a multi passionate person who is just doing all sorts of amazing things, from greeting cards to podcast, a daily podcast. Um, it's quite an amazing feat. Illustrator, children's book author, an illustrator. Um, it's just incredible people, and each has their own things that they're stuck on, just like all of us do, and we're helping them work through those things to feel unstuck and to get the momentum going, to overcome and highlight. Well, first of all, to bring awareness, just like we were talking about our aligned method. For the first part of the aligned method is bringing awareness to something that might be a blocker for you. It's something that a pattern you might not recognize that you have. Some blind spot, that's the word that I wanted. I almost said shadow work. I'm like, that's not what we're doing necessarily, but shining a light on blind spots, because we all have them. And sometimes that's shame, and that's what Adrian helps folks with the hoarding aspect, the shame, through that and more. And we take similar types of approaches within our group coaching program. So can check that out at meetfutureyou.com/collab. If you are able to join us tomorrow at 11 Central, that is meetfutureyou.com/hoarding, HOARDING. um, yeah, thank you so much. And then, like I said, next week we're going to be talking about the law of creativity and how you can bring some creativity back into your life or into your life for the first time. So, Molly will have more for us from the book of 22 Laws of Wellness. Maybe by then I'll get my hands on the book and be able to contribute more on that. But until then, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the ones and zeros. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.